Seed. Member FDIC, Equal Housing Lender.
Looking to hire? Indeed will help you speed up the process. They have 135 skills tests to help you find the right candidates faster. Visit Indeed.com/credit.
8:36. And to check on the roads this morning, Team Hochberg Traffic Center time and Jim.
Inbound Kennedy traffic is heavy from 190 all the way to the Burns Circle. It's a 50-minute trip, O'Hare to downtown, 25 from Montrose, 17 to the Express, outbound 14 minutes to Montrose and 34 to the airport. Inbound Edens, delays kick in around Peterson, 22 minutes, Lake Cook to Montrose, outbound 19. On the odd hour, it's 58 minutes from 390 to downtown, 43 from Wolf. Outbound 38 minutes to 390. Inbound Stevenson, 33 minutes, 355 to Lakeshore Drive. The ride from 95th to downtown is 26 minutes. Northbound Lakeshore Drive is heavy from the Stevenson to Jackson. We see delay on the northbound Tri-State from LaGrange Road to the Stevenson. That's traffic. I'm Jim Talamonte. On AM 560, The Answer.
Chicago's Morning Answer continues next. AM 560 Weather Center forecast. Turning sunny and warm by the afternoon, a high of 82. Partly cloudy and cooler overnight, low 53. Currently 66. Next news coming up at 9. Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan and Amy continues next on AM 560, The Answer.
From the Matrix Home Solutions studios, this is Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560, The Answer.
Listen to AM 560 The Answer online at 560theanswer.com, on the AM 560 mobile app, on your Alexa-powered smart speaker, and on TuneIn, iHeart, and on Odyssey. If you're looking for the latest news, insight into what it means, and the sharpest opinion, there's only one station in Chicago where you can turn, and it's this one. We're AM 560, The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan and Amy. Tom Rogers is founder of MSNBC, CNBC, former CEO of TiVo. He, both in print form and on MSNBC, has recently proposed the following: creating a corporate initiative to turn demography into political destiny for key swing states. He said if corporate America decided that it would support a new corporate great migration to swing states of women, young and diverse employees, those most likely to vote against big lie candidates, this could reshape the voter demography of those states in a short period of time. If corporations truly believe that the future of our democracy is at stake, is it really too radical to attempt? Yeah. And maybe some red states that are wooing the likes of Amazon and Apple outposts want to think twice about that sort of difficulty. You want to be a hospitable place for job creation, particularly good paying jobs. But at the same time, do you want to import the woke to your state? Particularly if Tom Rogers can get some of his friends together and finance this operation. I don't know. That seems like a stretch for corporate America to become that politicized to the detriment of their bottom line. But let's put that question to our friend Sohrab Ahmari, who's the op-ed editor of the New York Post. Sohrab, thanks for joining us again. Appreciate it. Oh, by the way, I'm sorry.
Thanks for having me.
I should mention the book, too. The Unbroken Thread, Discovering the Wisdom of Tradition in an Age of Chaos. There we go. Got to get the plug in. Sohrab, thanks. What do you think about what Mr. Morgan is Mr. Rogers, Tom Rogers is proposing?
I mean, it's not surprising at all. We've seen how big business has now completely aligned itself with the Democratic Party, with liberal ideology, and has divorced itself from the right. There's a segment of the right that still labors on the under the illusion that business is necessarily conservative. But what they'll do is they'll take the tax cuts from the Republicans, and they will use the Republicans to block the legislation that might harm their bottom line. But in terms of what they proactively advance, both because of worldview and because of, I think, it aligns with their ultimate material interests, they want to push wokeness, and what they want to transform the country in the image of Apple's campus or Google's campus, where woke ideology reigns.
I wonder if you feel a backlash is coming in 2022 or perhaps even before. A leading indicator, and this has been an underreported story, even in conservative media, I think, in terms of its import, those referendum questions in Pennsylvania about Tom Wolf's power as governor in a pandemic, both constitutional amendment referenda being supported by the voters to limit the governor's emergency powers in terms of duration, and also to prohibit him from moving to override legislative action that would limit his emergency powers. Seems to be that's a pretty big deal in a state that went for Biden.
Yeah, I mean, there are kind of bubbling signs of a possible reaction coming. I think there's just a great deal of concern about what we saw with the coronavirus lockdowns, which, going back to the big business thing, worked out really well for big business and large corporations like Amazon, and not so much for mom and pop stores and working class people who were left jobless and had to shutter their doors. So there's that. I think where I see other potential sources of backlash is with education. Not only the fact that the teachers' unions, extract these massive rents from taxpayers, but literally don't teach, don't do anything. But also the sort of, I think a lot of parents, even liberal parents, are beginning to get alarmed at the proliferation of critical race theory and this kind of race essentialist ideology where their kids are taught that they're guilty by dint of their kind of skin color, which is deeply anti-American and sinister. So I think those are other potential sources of backlash that Republicans should capitalize on: education, critical race theory, and the breakdown in law and order in blue-run cities and states.
But some states are fighting back. I mean, Tennessee yesterday signed a bill banning critical race theory, but that's never going to happen in blue states.
Right. I mean, but we'll see. I mean, I think look, I live in Manhattan, and I know so many parents. They're just sort of ambient liberals. They don't even think about it. It's just take liberalism for granted. But they didn't quite sign up for this, and so it's sad because they will talk to me as the only conservative they know. They'll sort of take me aside and whisper that they're alarmed about what their fancy private schools are teaching kids. $50,000-$60,000 a year to kind of meditate on their own privilege and self-flagellate for their white skin and so on and so forth. So I don't know. I mean, we just need, I think, even in blue states, we need smart conservative actors who are willing to somehow channel that anxiety into political victory. But in the other option is a lot of people will come to red states. Question is whether they'll bring their voting patterns with them.
The intersection between those two things that you just mentioned, the critical race theory and violence, the intersection, as memorialized most recently by Lee Smith at the Tablet, but certainly not a unique observation, but nevertheless an important one because I don't think people connect these dots, is that street violence is part of the strategy, or it's a tactic. It's part of the overall strategy of the left, the use of street violence to build those solidarity and marginality coalitions and to keep people in line.
I mean, I'm amazed that there's not greater anger among the sort of broad populace, because it really felt like over the last summer, the message was, you don't want any more of this Antifa violence. You don't want looting. Get Donald Trump out. That was a message to kind of middle-class Americans. And, I would have thought that's a kind of blackmail. But I do think there's a kind of, suburban voter that bought the message that basically said, yeah, okay, I'll give you Biden if you just leave me alone. But that's not how we. It's not how we do politics in America. It's not how we're supposed to do politics, where if it doesn't go our way, there's downtown's going to burn. So you better. I mean, what is that?
Yeah, it's extortion is what it is.
Yeah.
Extortionary politics. But again, I think a lot of people just don't connect the dots. They see these things in isolation. Oh, the violence is so bad, but they don't see Antifa or Black Lives Matter or others fomenting violence or excusing it, rationalizing it as political actors, even though they are.
Right, and it's just amazing how politicized, so blatantly, so shamelessly, all through the summer, any kind of violence that happened, look, it's the cry of the oppressed, and you've got to listen to what's driving people to burn down their downtown. And then, of course, the reaction to the riot on January 6th, which relatively, in terms of like violence and in terms of actual damage to property and lives, was minuscule compared to the summer, quote unquote, uprising, our summer of love, as it were. But that's a riot. Well, they had no problem using the word riot with respect to January 6th and denouncing it and setting up a whole new sort of national security apparatus to monitor the riot, so on and so forth. But over the summer, that was just the cry of the oppressed. It was a summer of love. It was a racial reckoning. That's okay.
What's your assessment of where Trump is at right now amid this New York Attorney General's criminal investigation, convening of a grand jury, the rather unremarkable, to be generous, offering in terms of social media, the Trump blog that's been offered in terms of providing any important footprint online for the president, and yet he still enjoys, again, broad popularity. There's the audit in Maricopa County that's going on. He's still talking about 2020. Where is he as a force in the party, in your estimation? Is he as strong as he was? Is he strengthening? Is he weakening? Is he going to be material in terms of impact in 2022?
I think he'll be a kingmaker going forward. I personally don't see him running again. But I do know that if you're, for example, a Senate candidate or a statewide attorney general candidate, wherever that may be, it's very typical for people to now go to kind of kiss the ring and seek Trump's endorsement. That tells you something. But is he as powerful? I think without Twitter, I have to say, I just think about Trump a lot less. It's not just that he's out of office, it's that he's been sort of unpersoned from social media for now, and so much of his power rested on that. So some of it's been, suppressed by the censorship. But I do think he'll continue to be an important kingmaker in the Republican Party, because I just know that that every potential candidate for office, no matter how kind of small the office, will try to trek there and get his blessing. So that tells you something.
Now, you said that you lived in Manhattan. You have a son. You talk about that in your book. How has it been during this whole pandemic with you and your son and your relationship?
Well, the book was titled The Unbroken Thread, Discovering the Wisdom of Tradition in an Age of Chaos. I wrote it for my son, who's now 4 years old, because it's just beyond the pandemic. I mean, I wrote it before the pandemic really hit. But I'm very concerned about the kind of society that, the kind of man that our society will chisel out of him. Just the kind of cultural degradation, the kind of pornographization that you see just on the street. But more at a more philosophical level, the account of freedom that elites like him, let's be honest, my son is a kind of, obviously his parents are elite, so he'll probably inherit our elite status. But the account of freedom that they get is freedom just means to fulfill yourself, fulfill your, maximize your choices and get ahead in life, with no sense of like this older account of freedom in the classical and Christian tradition, which says actually freedom means self-mastery. Freedom means freedom to do what you ought to do. Freedom means duty. Freedom means accepting limits. So I wrote the book in an attempt to counter the messages that our culture will send to my son. And so I posed 12 questions, each of which poke holes in one of our kind of liberal, technocratic, secular certainties. So, for example, why would God want you to take a day off? It's about the Sabbath and the loss of the American Sabbath. And that was sold to us as freedom, right? Now you can work on Sunday, you can shop on Sunday, you can do whatever you want on Sunday. And we lost blue laws. In fact, it turns out those blue laws were a friend of the working man, especially for downscale workers, and meant that they just had a day where they could spend with family. So the liberty of the market, the liberty of Jeff Bezos is not necessarily the liberty of the family or the worker or the good of the family and the worker. So these are the themes I explore in the book, and I do it not through my own voice, but each question is explored through the life of one great thinker. So the Sabbath chapter is Abraham Joshua Heschel. Rabbi Abraham Joshua Heschel is the central figure. On the question about why would God need politics with St. Augustine, and so each chapter is very story and narrative driven, and not me talking, as it were. It's centered on some great figure.
I like that whole dissertation that freedom and restraint are not antonyms is one that needs to be repeated often.
Indeed.
Sohrab Ahmari, he's an op-ed editor for the New York Post. His book he was just describing, The Unbroken Thread, Discovering the Wisdom of Tradition in an Age of Chaos. Sohrab, thanks for joining us again. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Bye.
Yeah, it's a wonderful gift for your son, too. And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
Connect with Dan and Amy on the AM 560 The Answer mobile app. Just text the word app to 64636 to download the app today.
Hi, I'm Jim Boyd, here to tell you about an incredible cost-saving opportunity you should consider for your building, office, or facility. For 30 years, Boyd Electric has been a local 134